Hello friends, the unit for the day is market concentration. The topics to be discussed are definition of the market, nature and measurement of market concentration, indices of concentration and inequality measures. Friends, let us begin with the introduction first. In economics, market concentration is a criterion that can be used to rank order various distributions of firm shares of the total production or total capacity or total reserves in a market. Market concentration is used when smaller firms account for large percentage of the total market. It measures the extent of domination of sales by one or more firms in a particular market. Thus, the concentration of economic power may be defined as the economic position which enables the firm to command control over production or market exchange or employment in respect of any goods or services. Control over production may result from possession of considerable share of the total productive capacity, control over raw material and other inputs, or exclusive ownership of know-how including patent rights, trademarks, industrial designs, etc. Market concentration is considered bad for the economy because abuse of dominance may occur in the economy. A dominant position is generally defined in the terms of the position of strength enjoyed by a firm or enterprise in the relevant market. In that case, it enables the firm to operate independently of competitive forces prevailing in the relevant market. Friends, let us understand manifestation of market concentration. Normally, market concentration in the industrial and services sector may be manifest in any or all of the forms like this. Number 1. Considerable share of productive capacity. If productive capacity of the firm is higher than the required capacity under the law in the relevant country, then it is said to be the dominant position of that firm in the relevant market. As a result, the firm will be able to buy the raw material with lower prices and will be able to control the prices of the raw material. Then, the firm is able to supply more goods and services and control the market with lower prices of the product or a service, because it is also in a position to control the price of the commodity or service it produces. Number 2. Control over the market. If an undertaking, either by itself or together with its interconnected undertakings, control over the certain share of the market, then it is also known as market concentration. Larger the share of the firm in the market, larger will be control over prices in the market. This kind of a firm is normally regarded as a dominant undertaking. Number 3. Large assets. The value of the assets of the firm will also give some indication of the market concentration too. Larger the assets of the firm, larger will be the monopoly. Number 4. Considerable share in employment. If the firm is employing large number of persons in the factory and its total share in total employment of the industry is large, then it also becomes an instrument to control the wages of the labor. The larger firm is normally in a position to control the price of the labor. If it is in a position to pay less wages to the labor, then the production cost will be less and price of the product will be lower in the market, and that will give the firm an added advantage in the market of the product. Therefore, the percentage of the workers of the industry employed by a firm is sometimes taken to decide the extent of its economic power and dominance. Friends, let us understand the causes of market concentration. There are many factors that contribute to the market concentration that leads to economic power. The Monopolies Inquiry Commission in India has spelt out these causes. Number 1. Growth of joint stock companies and technological advances. Development of joint stock company form for the production of goods and services leads to economies of scale. Production of a good or service on large scale naturally brings down the fixed cost of production. That also leads to technological advances for further reduction of cost. This is the main cause of the market concentration. The urge of reduction in cost of production leads to research and development activities in the firm to make the firm competitive in the market. Number 2, interconnection. Intercompany investments, interlocking of directors, mergers and acquisitions and amalgamations, etc. have also contributed to the market concentration in various sectors of economy. Number 3, managing agency. The system of managing agency supplying managerial skill in different forms and diverse ways has proved a fruitful source for market concentration. Number 4, control and command economy. The system of controls in the form of industrial licenses, import restrictions, exchange control, etc. have also helped the big business houses to remain big enough to control the market in India for a long time. These controls normally restrict the competition in the market and lead to market concentration. Number 5, inherent opportunities. Those who are economically powerful and wealthy always try to control the market for profit maximization. The working of India's planned economic growth has encouraged this process of market concentration by facilitating the growth of existing big business houses in India. Number 6, assistance from financial institutions. It also happens that the big business houses obtain assistance from banks and other financial institutions, and thus it leads to market concentration. Big banks and financial institutions normally give preference to big business houses in funding their big ticket projects. Friends, now let's understand what is market structure. Normally, market structure is understood with the varied degree of competition prevalent in the market. Here, we understand various markets with their basic characteristics. Number 1, perfect competition. It is a market in which there are large number of firms selling homogeneous goods to larger number of buyers. There is freedom of entry and exit to the firms, and so in the long run, firm will end up earning only normal profits. It is also assumed that in this market transactions cost is zero and economic factors behave rationally. Number 2, monopoly. It is a market characterized by the presence of a single firm, existence of strong barriers to entry and absence of close substitutes. In this market, the firm earns supernormal profit. Number 3, oligopoly. It is a market characterized by the few firms selling homogeneous or differentiated goods to many buyers. Firms either tend to cooperate or compete with each other. Number 4, monopolistic competition. It is a market characterized by the presence of many firms selling differentiated products to large numbers of buyers. There is freedom of entry and exit to firms. Selling costs are necessary due to product differentiation. Firms earn normal profit. Number 5, contestable markets. It refers to markets where there is an industry with freedom of entry and exit of firms and presence of low sunk costs. The theory of contestability suggests that number of firms is not so important, but the threat of competition is important. Normally, market concentration occurs when there is monopoly in the market of a particular good or a service. Friends, let's understand monopoly and market concentration. Monopoly strictly refers to a situation where the whole market for a product is controlled by a single firm and there is no substitute for that product. Normally, this kind of market is rare and the term monopoly is used to refer to normal monopoly situation. Degree of monopoly indicates the extent, control or power of a monopolist firm. Today, it is usual to describe a firm as monopolist if it by itself or with a few other firms controls the major part of the market of a particular good or a service. Friends, let's understand the sources and types of monopoly. Many obstacles to entry into the market of a product lead a firm to monopolize an industry and prevent entry of new firms. These obstacles may refer to legal, technical or economic barriers prevalent at a particular period in the economy. These types of monopoly create barriers of entry and lead to market concentration. Number 1. Natural monopoly. A natural monopoly occurs when the most efficient number of firms in the industry is 1. A natural monopoly will typically have very high fixed costs, meaning that it is impractical to have more than one firm producing the good. The natural monopolist always enjoys increasing returns to scale. The industry in public utilities is a good example of natural monopoly. Number 2. Strategic resource monopoly. This refers to a situation where a firm has achieved monopoly position by gaining control of an essential input or resource for production of a good or a service. If a firm is having total control of inputs, then that will naturally lead to market concentration of the product that it produces. Number 3. Patent monopoly. Patent is given to a firm to make, use or vend its own invention or discovery for the production of a good or a service. When a patent is given to a firm by the government for a particular period to produce a particular product, it monopolizes for the production of that product for a certain period. Many times, this monopoly is extended in the market for a much longer time than the stipulated time under the patent. Number 4. Licensed monopoly. Professor C. N. Vakil has used this term to refer to the situation where the domestic producers are enabled to obtain monopoly power by the protection accorded to them from foreign competition by the government. Friends, let us understand what is concentration. Concentration within an industry refers to the degree to which a small number of firms provide a major portion of the industry's total production. If concentration is low, then the industry is considered to be competitive. If the concentration is high, then the industry will be viewed as oligopolistic or monopolistic. Government agencies examine concentration within an industry when deciding to approve potential mergers between industry firms. The most common measure of concentration is the 4-firm concentration ratio, which is defined as the percentage of the industry's output sold by the 4 largest firms. An industry with a 4-firm concentration ratio of 40% is generally considered to be competitive. Friends, let us understand the description of the same. The market concentration ratio measures the combined market share of all the top firms in the industry. Market share is used as a reference here in the formula. It could be sales, employment statistics, number of people using a company's services, number of outlets, etc. The value of top firms or top n firms may be 3 or maximum 5. If the top firms keep on gaining market share, then we say that the industry has become highly concentrated. To understand market concentration, let us first understand concentration. Concentration within an industry can be defined as the degree at which a small number of firms make up for the total production in the market. If the concentration is low, it simply means that top n firms are not influencing the market production and the industry is considered to be highly competitive. On the other hand, if the concentration is high, it means that the top n firms influence the production or services provided in the market. The industry then is said to be oligopolistic or monopolistic. While perfectly competitive markets have homogeneity of goods, price searcher markets have a differentiation of goods. The differentiation could be in the form of location, taste, packaging, design, quality and many other factors. Some textbooks use the phrase monopolistic competition to describe markets where each firm has something unique about its product while facing significant competition. A good example would be a gas station. Although there are many competing gas stations, an individual gas station is the only one at its particular location and therefore, to some degree it has a monopoly or is a sole seller. The CFA text prefers the term competitive price searcher. Firms in a price searcher market with low barriers to entry have some flexibility to raise prices, as they will not lose all their customers even if they do so. For example, if company A raises the price of its motor oil, some people will be willing to pay the price for the motor oil they prefer. However, rival firms like company B or company C also provide similar motor oils. As company A raises its prices, many customers will switch to its rival suppliers. The demand curve faced by firms in competitive price search markets such as motor oil will be highly elastic. Firms in price searcher markets with low barriers to entry face competition from existing suppliers and potential new entrants. If economic profits are being made in the market, then more firms will be expected to enter the market. Price searchers can set their prices, but the actual quantities sold will depend upon market forces. Monopoly refers to a single seller. The single seller will have a market with no well-defined substitute. The monopolist does not need to worry about the reaction of other firms. Utility companies are often monopolists in particular markets. Friends, let's understand Herfindahl-Hirschman index, which is called HHI. The most common measure to calculate market concentration is the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, which is HHI. The HHI calculates concentration ratios by squaring the market share of the 50 largest firms in an industry. The formula can be expressed like this. Let's see the formula. HHI is equal to S1 square plus S2 square plus S3 square plus Sn square, where Sn is the market share of the ith firm. A monopoly would have the largest possible value minus 100 square is equal to 10,000. The HHI for a highly fragmented industry would be close to 0. The Justice Department of the USA generally considers an industry with an HHI above 1,800 to be highly concentrated. Thus, this index is calculated by adding the square root of the percentage market share of each individual firm in the industry. For example, in a market consisting of only 5 firms with shares of 30%, 30%, 20%, 10% and another 10%, the Herfindahl index would be 2400, that is 900 plus 900 plus 400 plus 100 plus 100. This index may rise as high as 10,000 if the market has a monopoly, but lower the index is, more competitive the market becomes. The indicator could become 0 for the perfect competition. Market concentration is a function of the number of firms in a market and their respective market shares. As an aid to the interpretation of market data, we can use Herfindahl-Hirschman index of market concentration. As said earlier, HHI is calculated by summing the squares of individual market shares of all the participants. Unlike the 4-firm concentration ratio, the HHI reflects both the distribution of market shares of the top 4 firms and the composition of the market outside the top 4 firms. It also gives proportionately greater weight to the market shares of the larger firms in accordance with their relative importance in competitive interactions. Here, we divide the spectrum of market concentration as measured by the HHI into 3 regions that can be broadly characterized as unconcentrated, wherein the HHI will be below 1000, moderately concentrated, wherein the HHI will be between 1000 and 1800, and highly concentrated, wherein the HHI will be above 1800. Although the resulting regions provide a useful framework for merger analysis, the numerical divisions suggest greater precision than is possible with the available economic tools and information. Other things being equal, cases falling just above and just below a threshold point present comparable competitive issues. Friends, let us understand the general standards. In evaluating horizontal mergers, the agency will consider both the post-merger market concentration and the increase in concentration resulting from the merger. Market concentration is a useful indicator of the likely potential competitive effect of a merger. The general standards for horizontal mergers are like this: A. Post-merger HHI below 1000. The agency regards market in this region to be unconcentrated. Mergers resulting in unconcentrated markets are unlikely to have adverse competitive effects and ordinarily require no further analysis. B. Post-merger HHI between 1000 and 1800. The agency regards markets in this region to be moderately concentrated. Mergers producing an increase in the HHI of less than 100 points in moderately concentrated markets post-merger are unlikely to have adverse competitive consequences and ordinarily require no further analysis. Mergers producing an increase in the HHI of more than 100 points in moderately concentrated markets post-merger potentially raise significant competitive concerns depending on the factors. C. Post-merger HHI above 1800. The agency regards markets in this region to be highly concentrated. Mergers producing an increase in the HHI of less than 50 points, even in highly concentrated markets post-merger, are unlikely to have adverse competitive consequences and ordinarily require no further analysis. Mergers producing an increase in the HHI of more than 50 points in highly concentrated markets post-merger potentially raise significant competitive concerns. It will be presumed that mergers producing an increase in the HHI of more than 100 points are likely to create or enhance market power or facilitate its exercise. Friends, now let us get to the factors that affect the significance of market shares and concentration. The post-merger level of market concentration and the change in concentration resulting from a merger affect the degree to which a merger raises competitive concerns. Now let us look at the examples of such situations. Changing market conditions, market concentration and market share data of necessity are based on historical evidence. However, recent or ongoing changes in the market may indicate that the current market share of a particular firm either understates or overstates the firm's future competitive significance. For example, if a new technology that is important to long-term competitive viability is available to other firms in the market, but is not available to a particular firm, the agency may conclude that the historical market share of that firm overstates its future competitive significance. The agency will consider reasonably predictable effects of recent or ongoing changes in market conditions in interpreting market concentration and market share data. Degree of difference between the products and locations in the market and substitutes outside the market. All else equal, the magnitude of potential competitive harm from a merger is greater if a hypothetical monopolist would raise price within the relevant market by substantially more than a small but significant and non-transitory amount. This may occur when the demand substitutes outside the relevant market as a group are not close substitutes for the products and locations within the relevant market. There thus may be a wide gap in the chain of demand substitutes at the edge of the product and geographic market. Under such circumstances, more market power is at stake in the relevant market than in a market in which a hypothetical monopolist would raise price by exactly 5%. For example, a market consisting of 4 firms with market shares of 30%, 30%, 20% and 20% has an HHI of 2600, that is 30 square plus 30 square plus 20 square plus 20 square, which is equal to 2600. The HHI ranges from 10,000, especially in the case of pure monopoly, to a number approaching 0 in the case of an atomistic market. Although it is desirable to include all firms in the calculation, lack of information about small firms is not critical because such firms do not affect the HHI significantly. The increase in concentration as measured by the HHI can be calculated independently of the overall market concentration by doubling the product of the market shares of the merging firms. For example, the merger of firms with shares of 5% and 10% of the market would increase the HHI by 100, which goes like this: 5 into 10 into 2 is equal to 100. The explanation for this technique is like this. In calculating the HHI before the merger, the market shares of the merging firms are squared individually, that is A square plus B square. After the merger, the sum of those shares would be squared A plus B whole square, which equals to A square plus 2AB plus B square. The increase in the HHI therefore is represented by 2AB. Friends, let us understand the limitation of concentration measures. Concentration ratios have some of these limitations. Number 1, foreign production. Concentration ratios often fail to fully incorporate the revenue from foreign companies, thus overestimating the concentration of domestic industry and underestimating the impact of foreign goods on competition. Number 2, ease of entry. An industry may have relatively few participants, but low barriers to entry. In such cases, a concentration ratio will overstate the power of current suppliers. Number 3, elasticity of demand. Concentration ratios do not factor in the elasticity of demand and the availability of substitutes. Many highly concentrated industries like metal, airlines, etc., are constrained by the availability and cost of substitute products and services. Number 4, imprecise definitions. A narrowly defined industry will appear to be a more concentrated than a more broadly defined industry. Suppose we were looking at concentration within the shoe industry. Should the market be simply shoes, or do we break down further into athletic shoes or men's shoes or children's shoes and further? Friends, let us understand how to coordinate economic activity. Economic activity can be coordinated by markets or by individual firms. A firm organizes input production factors so as to produce and market goods or services. Auto manufacturers are actually assemblers of cars. Most of the parts in a car are produced by hundreds of component suppliers. This is an example of market coordination. If a car company decides to coordinate all the activities associated with brake components, then the coordination is being done by that firm. A firm will decide to coordinate a particular type of economic activity when it can do so more efficiently than what is provided by the market. Firms can be more efficient than markets due to number 1. Economies of scope. This applies when a firm hires specialized resources that can produce a broad range of goods and services. For example, a person with a difficult to diagnose medical condition would probably be sent to a hospital which will have a broad range of medical specialists and diagnostic equipment. Number 2. Economies of scale. For many types of goods, per unit production cost declines as larger volumes of output are produced by an individual firm. Number 3. Team production. Team production can often lower production costs. Number 4. Transaction costs. Transaction costs are often reduced when economic activity is coordinated by a firm. Friends, let's summarize the session now. In this session, we have learnt about different market structures in context of market concentration. We also learnt about some methods employed to measure market concentration, namely concentration ratio and HHI. The common attitude is against the concentration of market because it leads to concentration of economic power in the economy. It is believed that the market concentration is associated with the exploitation of consumers and many other evils. There are some beneficial effects of market concentration in terms of technological developments. The harmful effects may tend to outweigh the beneficial effects. Sometimes, concentration of markets may foster development leading to technological advancements and further leading to higher GDP growth. But the measurements of market concentration force us to believe that it is quite harmful. Thank you, friends.